melodic heavy metal. Playing it heavier, louder, raunchier, faster. 99.1 CJAM. This is the Signals of Intuition.
99.1 CJAM FM. There's Metallica right there with Battery from their classic record, Master of Puppets. Tonight on the show, we've got a very special guest. We've got the mixing engineer of that record, Mr. Michael Wagener. He's going to hang out for the entire show tonight. And if you don't know his name, let me run through just a partial list of his discography to let you know how renowned this guy is and how important he was to so many 80s metal bands. Among others, he worked on Master of Puppets, Ozzy Osbourne's No More Tears, Poison Look with a Cat Dragged In. He did a couple records with Ozzy Osbourne, Skid Row's first two albums, Dokken, their first couple of records, Accept's first couple of albums, Raven, Extreme's Porno Graffiti, which was the one that had more than words on it. He's worked with Janet Jackson in the past, done some mixing work with Testament, White Lion, and so many other bands. So let's get him on the line right now. Hey, Michael.
Hello.
Hey, it's Brandon for CGM FM. How you doing?
I'm pretty cool.
You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, the audio actually sounds really good on your end, so I'm happy about that.
Oh, okay.
Go figure, eh? The audio sounds good coming from the audio engineer.
Right.
All right, so would you mind if we start this interview at the beginning of your career and we'll sort of work our way up through to what you've got going on now?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So first, can you tell me a little bit about your early life, sort of where you grew up, how you got into music, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I was born in a town in Germany called Wuppertal. That's about 35 miles from Cologne.
Oh, okay.
And, I lived there till I was drafted to the army, and they drafted me to Hamburg, Germany, which is about 350 miles from where I grew up. I went to school with Udo Dirkschneider, who was the singer for Accept.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Udo and I actually came up with the band Accept. It was called Band X in the very beginning, and then later on, Udo and we found the name Accept, and that was used from then on. Shortly after, I actually had to leave since I was drafted. And, Udo and we basically spent our lives together. Our whole youth and made music together. I started playing guitar when I was 12. Not very good, but at least I started. And Udo was a singer, so we put that band together. So after that, I got drafted, and I lived in Hamburg for about 10 years before I moved to the United States.
Now, as far as recording goes, were you always interested in recording, or how did you get started doing audio engineering and that kind of thing?
Well, I was always interested in music, and I was always interested in electronics. So from that end, I tried to bring the both together. But at first, of course, it was the band. So it was music. And then later on, when I was after the army, I started working at a company called Stramp, which stands for Struven Amplifiers. In Germany, we would build like guitar amps and mixing consoles and that kind of stuff. And I got my degree in electronics during that time. And later on, by selling digital analog machines and studio gear, I got into the taste that I like working with the stuff better than building it. So, I opened my own studio in Hamburg called Tennessee Studio, if you believe that. And that's basically how it all started.
So then what prompted you to move from Germany to LA?
Well, at that studio, we were connected to a disco, to a club next door, in order to be able to record. And Dokken was playing that club. So I met Don Dokken, and he invited me over. And I always, even when we were working at Stramp, we were thinking about moving the whole company to America. And so Don invited me over, and I followed that invite in 1979, and I fell in love with it. And I figured, well, this is going to have to be it. This is me. And then 1980, I moved over for good, but then the economy wasn't that good at that time, so I moved back to Germany, went on tour with W.A.S.P, opening up for Judas Priest, and did some records over there, started doing records over there, came back and forth, over here I did Malice and Great White. And
cool. I didn't know you did Malice.
Yeah.
I don't think that's in your discography.
No, because that record, that was never a record. We did a demo, and then it turned into a record later on.
Oh,
But
I see. Okay.
I'm not quite sure 100% what did happen there. And I don't have an album cover or anything like that. So I don't know, what happened with that album. So
Yeah, fair enough. Now, when you came over to the States initially, did you speak English?
yeah. You learn English in school over in Germany. English is a must-learn language, and then you can pick a second one, either French, Latin, or what was it, Spanish, I think. And my parents picked Latin for me because they always wanted me to become a doctor. So, but yeah, you have to learn English.
Oh,
even though I'm probably speaking better English than my English teacher did back then.
Well, especially living in the States for so many years, I'm pretty sure, yeah. So obviously you've done a lot of albums with Dokken. Do you have any good stories about Don Dokken or working with the band or anything?
Well, when I first moved over here, then I basically stayed on Don's couch.
Oh, really?
His couch in his living room, because he had invited me. Now he had to put up with me, right? So, and then later on, I rented a room in his house, in another house, and from there on, I got my first own house and that. But Don and I, we've worked very close together. I did his live sound during that time. I worked on his PA, and basically we were hanging out together every day. So, and obviously we did a whole bunch of records together. So there's been a lot going on. Some stuff I really don't want to talk about, and some stuff I can talk about if this is a public interview. A Dokken session was always, to say the least, it was always very, very interesting.
Did you ever get to experience the infamous Don Dokken and George feud, or did that come later after the albums?
It was from day one.
Really?
From day one, before we even started doing... Actually, Don and I, we did the demos for Breaking the Chains. And then Gabi Hoffman, Wolf Hoffman's wife, got him a deal in Germany. And then he came back and we did the record. And from day one, there was this tension between the two of them. I don't really know what it is. I blame it on egos, maybe, but I have no idea. I think that to a degree, that tension was helpful in the studio to get the musical results that we finally got. But obviously, this constant bickering and stuff is not that funny.
How would you describe their relationship? Like, I know Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth, for example. Like, you've got David, the very loud, outspoken one, and you've got Eddie, the very quiet one. Is that sort of Don and George, or is it just two huge egos sort of at battle with each other?
They were both, I would think they were both more quiet. But there was a certain competition in the band, because originally Don used to play all the guitars. On the first demo that we did at Tennessee Studio, Don played all the guitars. He was a great guitar player, but then that was one of the conditions for George to enter the band, that he said, well, from now on, I'm going to play all the guitars, and that will create tension,
Yeah, okay, that makes sense now. This whole feud finally makes sense to me, finally, because I didn't know Don was a guitar player, so that explains it.
It was really good, and if you take a guitar away from somebody on stage, they feel naked. Mm-hmm. That's actually not a good thing. But I think they made it through it pretty well. I've seen tough stuff going on with them, like physical stuff going on. Yeah, I mean, that was always there, and I thought that was good tension, except for it was, at some points, very serious. And, for instance, on under lock and key, we had to record the vocals 20 miles away from the drums, from the guitars. We were in 2 different studios recording that record because we couldn't have the 2 being under the same roof at that time.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's insane. And it makes you wonder how the hell they ever kept the band together for a couple more years after doing that record, if that was the case.
Well, the record was very successful, so that's definitely one of the reasons, Can't argue with success. So something worked, and that's why they stuck together, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And then, so a couple years later, you also mixed Master of Puppets, which is one of the most revered metal albums in history. How did you get involved with that record?
Well, Cliff Bernstein, Q Prime Management, was Dawkins' manager.
Oh, okay.
And, he managed Dawkins, he managed Def Leppard, and he managed Metallica. And, since we had a little bit of a successful record with Under Lock and Key, Cliff, had the idea that I should mix the Metallica album.
And then when you mixed that, were the guys around?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Cliff wasn't always there, but Lars and James were there all the time.
How did you find it working with them? Are they very demanding people, or did they let you do your craft and sort of?
No, they knew exactly what they wanted. They knew exactly what they didn't want. They didn't want that big sound even back then, So it was a little bit of a compromise, but I think we worked it out pretty well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's still, to this day, it's one of my favorite mixed albums, so I've got to tip my hat for that one. And then also, you worked with Alice Cooper around this time, and what was it like working with him?
Oh, Alice is amazing. In basically all those big guys that have made it, like Ozzy and Alice, and they're amazing people, and I think that's part why they make it. I worked with Kane Roberts with a band called Criminal Justice, and Kane ended up being in Alice's band, and that's how that connection came together. And
oh, I see.
So I met Alice through Kane, and we worked on Constrictor together, and then later on I just remixed Constrictor and recorded some little things. But later on, I produced, engineered, and mixed Raise Your Fist and Yell.
Well, that to me, might be my favorite Alice Cooper record, top to bottom. I really love that one, and I liked how you sort of brought the heaviness back to the band on that album.
Yeah, and that was definitely Kane as well. Kane and all the musicians involved, It was Kane Roberts, Kip Winger, and Ken Mary, the KKK of rock.
Oh, my God. What a lineup. That's crazy.
That's amazing, and between them, they were all amazing musicians, and it was just so much fun to do this record.
Is it true Alice watches a lot of horror films when he's making a record?
Yeah, Alice would, when we were doing Raise Your Fist and Yell, he would get up at 4 a.m, go down to Laguna Beach, play golf till about 1 o'clock, and then come to the studio, did his vocals, and after he was done, he would rent 3 of the C-class horror films, actually the ones that you can see the strings in. And then, the next day it would start all over. But he would always be there and sing and gave his very, very best. He's really easy to work with and a lot of fun to work with. Because he's a super smart guy and he's a super nice guy. It's kind of weird to say that about Alice Cooper or Ozzy Osbourne in that case, but they're really, really nice people, and they're basically all very down to earth, and they're a lot of fun to work with.
Mm-hmm. How is Kane to work with?
Oh, Kane is amazing. Kane is super smart, and I can remember back then he came to my house because I had an old Mac II. And wanted to know about computers. And he goes, so how do you turn it on? And then a year later, he's developing video games and all that kind of stuff on a computer. He's super smart. And Kane is one of the few people I still talk to from L.A. We've been friends over all these years, and we're just close friends. And I helped him out with records that he's done afterwards, and he came out here and we did some recording here. for an album, and I think all that stuff got released. But no, Kenny's amazing.
Is he still working and doing recording and that kind of thing? Because the last thing I know from him was Phoenix Down, which I thought was a great record.
Yeah, no, there's Phoenix Down we did at my studio here in Nashville. But actually we did some of the recording and all the mixing there. But he just released some other stuff, old demos and some stuff that we did together that never got released. And he came out with, I don't even know what it's called. I got to get that record. I haven't, but he's still playing, and he's doing a lot of stuff with the what is it called, the Musicians Boot Camp in Vegas.
Oh, so he's running some kind of like you say like some sort of boot camp kind of thing right now?
He's part of it. I don't know exactly if he's running it, but he's definitely part of it. And it looks like he calls me once in a while and tells me about it. Looks like he's having a lot of fun there.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know exactly if he's right now recording for a new album. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Is he still built like a tank? Because he was in the 80s. I know that.
He's not as big as he was for the videos, but he is still really, really well built, to say the least. He and I, we used to go, before we did the Criminal Justice record, his first album where I met him, we used to go work out in the morning before we go to the studio. And here's me, like, taking 100 pounds and getting it not higher than my nose. And there's Kane with a 500-pound barbell and just like pushing it way over his head. After which we proceeded to go to Mary Callender's, and each of us got a chicken and a chocolate cake.
So it reminds me of John Panette. He goes, if I can do 45 minutes on the treadmill, I'm going to have raviolis and a nap.
Yeah.
All right, Michael. Right now, we've got to go to a break, but I'll tell you what. Let's do a song from each band that we've talked about really in depth so far, Dokken and Alice Cooper. What do you say we kick things off with Tooth and Nail from Dokken?
Okay.
All right, here we go. So this is Tooth and Nail, the title track from Dokken's 1985 album, mixed by Michael, and we'll be back with more Michael Wagener after this. 99.1 CJM FM. There's Alice Cooper from Raise Your Fist and Yell. That was Roses on White Lace. Before that, we had Dokken, the title track from their 1984 album, Tooth and Nail. Right now on the show, we've got Mr. Michael Wagener via Skype, the mixing engineer and producer of those tracks. Michael has a storied career in heavy metal. He's done everything from Ozzy to Megadeth, Metallica, Skid Row, Alice Cooper, and Dokken that we just played, Accept, Extreme, Janet Jackson, and so many other bands, and we're going to get to more of them right now. So Michael, after you did Dokken, and we also talked about Master of Puppets, in 1987 you worked on the two White Lion records. What was it like working on those albums? Oh,
it was really nice. There is this thing, and we had that with Lars, and we had it with Mike, being Danish. Sometimes their sound of their voice comes across as being accusing, or it's kind of hard, and people misunderstand it. I do understand it because I'm German and I'm a little bit closer to the Danish language than the Americans are. So sometimes what they're saying comes across wrong, but I mean, Mike is a great singer. They're amazing songwriters, and never mind Vito on guitars. Vito is one of my top 3 famous guitar players.
Who else would make your list?
Well, Steve Stevens and George Lynch. And there's, of course, Zach. Zach back then when he was in Ozzy. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. Snake and Scotty. A lot of people that I've worked with, are just Kristen Pelletieri. All amazing, amazing guitar players. But Vito, unfortunately, doesn't play anymore, which I find really, really sad. In a minute, I would do a record with Vito. In a minute. I would not even ask. So,
well, I mean, Vito, too, like, the great thing with him, not only does he have great technique and everything, but the feel he brings to guitar is just unreal. You put on Big Game, and it's a whole other level of how he phrases things and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. He had his own style, and I remember on Pride, that song Wait. When we were tracking drums, Vito was playing along through an amp that's plugged in straight into the console, and he played along and he did the solo while we were tracking the drums, and that's the solo you're hearing. He played that solo while we're tracking drums. It was not redone.
Oh my, wow.
Yeah,
That's
it
unreal.
blows your mind. That's how good Vito is.
I gotta sit down and listen to that one again now. I haven't heard that song in a while.
Yeah.
Is it true that you had a chance to mix Appetite for Destruction?
Yes. Alan Niven was the manager of Guns N' Roses. Alan and Don Darkin and I, we lived in the same house for a while. And Alan offered me to mix Appetite for Destruction. And I liked the band musically, but I wasn't too crazy about some of the stuff that was going on. And I don't really want to get deeper into that.
Well,
but
like a lot of drugs and drinking and stuff, I would assume, right?
there was some stuff going on that was, not really to my liking. So I turned it down. Big mistake. Financially, a massive mistake. But I also turned down Soundgarden when I got offered to do the what was it, the first record, I think?
I think that was Loud Love, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it was around the 90s, or late 80 or 90, whatever that record was. And turned that down too. So at which point I decided I should get a manager.
Are there any other projects you've walked away from or had to turn down?
I've walked away from a lot of projects that I turned down, but mostly for reasons that I didn't like what was going on, didn't like the music as much, and didn't see much potential in it. And also, you really haven't heard from those bands ever. So I must have been not quite that wrong.
Well, that's pretty good if you don't have a list of I turned down Appetite and Metallica's Black Album, and the list doesn't go on. It kind of stops with Appetite, which is kind of nice. That
and then the Soundgarden album, but that's about it. And both albums I should have done, but at the time, also when Soundgarden was offered to me, I was busy doing other stuff. For months ahead of time. So
another band that you worked with a lot over the years is Skid Row. How did you come to meet them and join on as a producer?
Well, Atlantic. Jason Flom in Atlantic called me up one day and goes, "Hey, I got this band, you got to hear it." I go, "Well, send me a tape." "No, you got to come and see them play." So they flew me out there to Jersey, and I saw Skid Row play, and I talked to Doc McGee, who was the manager. And, Atlantic asked me, "Can you do something with the band?" I go, "Absolutely." From ever then, Rachel and I and Snake and I, we became really, really good friends. And Scotty, I think the first Skid Row album was the most fun album that I have ever recorded.
Now, from what I understand, you guys did like a month or two's work on pre-production on that record, right?
It was about 3 weeks.
Oh, okay, so not that long.
Yeah, no, it was about 3 weeks. We did some stuff at Rachel's apartment, and then we moved into a tiny little 8-track studio and did basically a demo for the whole album there. And then we moved into Lake Geneva, Royal Recorders, and did the whole record there. But yeah, we did spend a lot of time and even longer time on Slave to the Grind.
Do you think any of those demos that you guys did before you cut the album properly, do you think they'll ever be released or properly mixed or anything like that?
Well, one demo you can listen to, that's the song Slave to the Grind. That is the actual demo. It was recorded and mixed in 1 hour. And that we never really got the same feel again, so that is the demo.
Really? When you cut demos for Slave to the Grind, you, instead of doing a proper version of it, you mixed the demo of the song? Like no. That's what made the album? That's what made the album, yeah. We went into a fairly good studio with an Eve console and a digital machine and did the demos there. In New Jersey, what was it called? City Lights or something like that. And we did the demos there for the album. And then when came time, and mixed it there as well. And when came time to do the record, which we did in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale,
we actually couldn't they couldn't get capture the feel that we had on the demo for the song Slave to the Grind. So we thought, well, man, let's just use that. It never got even remixed or anything. That is the original demo, recorded and mixed in 1 hour. We did it all in 1 hour.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I never knew that. That's unreal. Wow.
Yeah. And it just got, basically mastered together with the whole rest of the record. But that song is almost, I would think, 90% live.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Snake told me this, but supposedly it took you guys several days to get the guitar tone right on the first 2 records that you did?
Yeah, we always spend a lot of time on guitar tones. And, we had a lot of amps on the first record. We had a lot of even more amps on the second record because then they were successful and had all kinds of gear. And it took us probably 2 days to get the bass tone and a couple of days to get the guitar tone, we were all still young and experimenting a lot.
Now, as far as guitar amps go, do you remember what kind of stuff you used?
Yeah.
On any of those records?
Yeah, on the first album we used the ADA MP1 preamp a lot. And it's actually a funny story. That was used on White Lion, it was used on Extreme, and it was used on Skid Row, all with the same setting, all with the same cabinet, and all with the same microphones. So the only difference was the player and the guitar, and they all sound completely different.
Oh, I know. That's crazy.
Even the same preset on the MP1, which I still have. It's still up in the rack. It's still there.
Oh my God.
Still on the same setting.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that was used a lot. We used Marshall amps, and on the second album we used Rivera amps a lot.
Oh, okay. I really got to look into those amps then, because I know Snake. He told me that he's a diehard fan of theirs, and the tone you got on Slave is still one of my favorite guitar tones. So.
Well, thank you.
So as far as I know, Skid Row, they were a really tight unit on the first record, sort of us versus the world. Did you find that their relationships has started to change by the time Slave to the Grind happened, or were they still fairly tight, us versus the world kind of thing?
In terms of the band members amongst each other?
Yeah, because, like later on, everything blew up and they're not together anymore. So I'm just curious if when you did...
They definitely were still tight. Of course, they just sold 10 million records, and you can imagine what kind of pressure that is for the second album.
Mm-hmm.
So that pressure was definitely there. It was my job to take care of that and break it up and make it all, hey, we're doing rock and roll. This is all we're doing, But on the other hand, because of the massive success of the first one, it was easier because of the resources to do the second record.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you have 10 years to write the songs for the first album, and you have 3 months in the back of the bus to write the songs for the second album.
Yeah.
So that makes it a bit tougher, but that's why pre-production was a little bit longer for the second record. So we sat in Jersey in the snow, I remember, and arranged the songs and so on and so on. So it is a lot of pressure, as you can imagine. So, but I think the band was still sticking together. I didn't feel anything different from the first record. They were crazy on the first record, so they were still crazy on the second record.
Were you ever contacted to work on their next record, Subhuman Race?
No, I didn't even know that was going on. And I'm not sure, from what I heard later, I think it was Sebastian that felt there should be another producer and blah, 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 blah. They just wanted to try something new, and I don't know if it was such a happy decision. Hearing from some of the band members later on that a lot of stuff kind of didn't go as well as it did go on the first 2 records. Mm-hmm. Stuff wasn't taken care of, and I think you can tell, by the way the vocals sound and how much attention was paid to that, or how little. So I was somewhat disappointed when it came out to hear it, but nothing wrong. On the other hand, never change a winning team, you know.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, you can't fault them. I mean, Bob Rock at the time was, he was the superstar producer with Metallica and all that, and that. Well, I think the problem was they pushed him too far in a sort of Soundgarden type of sound, and it didn't really gel with who they were and what kind of music they played.
Right. I don't know if they pushed him but like I said, I don't know much about what was going on there, so.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you also remixed and dusted off some tracks for their Best Of album. What was it like remixing the work of Bob Rock?
Well, it's like I do a lot of mixing and remixing, so to me that's just like standard procedure. Unfortunately, we were going to remix more stuff, even from the first two records.
Oh, really? Oh, so you were going to do a complete remix from the ground up?
Yeah, but the first two records were recorded on digital, and the drums were on analog. So that meant a digital tape was 30 minutes long, an analog tape was 15 minutes long. So and you fit about 3 songs on a 15-minute tape. So you would have to have, for one song, you would have to have 1 digital reel and 2 analog reels. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't be found. Atlantic basically lost those tapes. I would have loved to remix it. I would have loved to remix something in 5.1 in surround sound,
Oh, that would just be wicked.
I would love to do that still, but, the tapes are gone. They're history.
Oh, geez.
Can't be found. Yeah, and the only tapes that could be found were Subhuman Race tapes. So we remixed some of that, and I'm not sure if we remixed a demo or something like that. We actually put on a song that we didn't use on the first Skid Row album.
Yeah, that was Forever.
Forever, yeah. That was completely done and mixed back then, so we put that one on, but the other tapes couldn't be found to the day.
That's too bad, too, because, like you say, a 5.1 mix of Slave and the first one would just be...
Yeah,
what's that?
I would love to do that.
So then you also worked on the Revolutions Per Minute album in 2006, which was obviously a lot more like a punk sort of vibe than sort of the metal stuff they were doing earlier. What was it like working with them again after all this time?
It was great. I mean, they're the same great band. I love Scotty Snake and Rachel. Johnny was new to me. So Johnny is a fabulous singer. It's a great singer, but unfortunately, he has to fill Sebastian's shoes as an entertainer. And people just loved Sebastian. And that is really, really, really hard to do. Following somebody up, that hasn't worked that often, if at all. It has worked in Van Halen, has worked in AC/DC. That's about all I can think about.
Yeah.
Judas Priest didn't work, even though the guy was a great singer. But it's really hard. And Johnny is amazing. He's technically a wonderful singer.
Yeah.
Really easy to work with. He can sing anything you ask him to. And it's just that it's nobody's real fault, It's just that people have a chemistry, and together, even with the producer, there's a chemistry that makes that record. And when something gets interrupted there, it's going to be really hard to make something as good. Even though I think the songs are great, the performances are great, the sound is great, and yeah, it has a little bit more punk influence because that's Rachel. Rachel's a punk guy, He was always into the heavy songs even early on, and that's his record.
Yeah. And then so I read during that album that you guys went totally overkill miking the drums. You had something like 30 mics on a 4-piece drum kit or something like that?
No. There's so many stupid rumors out there. No, I always mic the drums with about 20 microphones. And it's not a 4-piece kit. There was like 4 toms and kick drum, snare, a bunch of cymbals.
Oh, okay.
But if you count the room mics and all that, I end up with about 20 tracks of drums. But I always do that. There's nothing really special about that. The only thing special that we did on Skid Row was on the first record, the drums were recorded in a convention center. That's actually the whole reason we went to that studio. There was a convention center that the day before, there was 120 cars in that room for an auction. And that's how big it was.
Wow.
Massive, massive, massive room. So we actually had to section off some parts to make it not too big. And the roadie had to sleep right next to the drum set, so no microphones were stolen. But most of the big reverb that you hear on that drum set is actually that room.
Oh, wow.
Through, I don't know if you technically know, an SSL console has a listen mic.
Yeah.
And that listen mic is heavily compressed. When you talk to the drummer and he then hits the snare or something, that mic compresses so much that, the sound doesn't come out as loud, and you still can hear the voice of him talking. That listen mic was over his shoulder, and that recorded most of the reverb of that room on the first Skid Row album.
Wow, that's very different.
Yeah, it was massive. You can't imagine. I mean, you would clap your hands, and then about 5 seconds later, you would hear the echo of that clapping. That's how big that room was.
Oh my God, that's like an airplane hangar or something. That's unreal.
It's actually bigger than an airplane hangar.
Okay, so we sort of covered Skid Row. A year or two later, you worked with Extreme on Porno Graffiti. What was it like working with those guys?
A lot of fun. One of the few bands in my career, I think from about 190 records that I've done, there was about 4 where everybody played live for keepers. And Extreme was one of them. The guys were just so good. They were amazingly good. And of course, Nuno is a brilliant guitar player. I think Gary is a great singer, and he did not really get the recognition he should have gotten on that Van Halen record that he did. And it was just a great band, great songs, and was a lot of fun. We had actually Pat Travers come in, and Pat is known for his guitar playing.
Oh yeah, well I'm Canadian, so I know Pat very well. I had no idea he was on that record.
Yeah, the pre-chorus of "Get the Funk Out," that's Pat singing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know that. Very cool.
Yeah.
When you were doing that record, did you have a feeling that something special was happening here, that this might be a huge smash hit that it became later on?
Well, you never know if it becomes a smash hit, but you have your feelings. You have your hair standing up, on your arms. And when you hear stuff like More Than Words, you go, well, I like it. I don't know what anybody else is going to say, but I think this is an amazing song. Same with When the Children Cry from White Lion, or 18 in Life, or I Remember You by Skid Row. I mean, amazing songs. And I get chills when I think about it now, recording that stuff. You never know if it becomes a big hit. I never would have thought that Poison, Look What the Cat Dragged In, would be that massively of a success that it was, but it is. But on other stuff, for instance, on the Criminal Justice record with Kane Roberts, I thought this is going to be massive, and it was not, for whatever reason, but you just have a good feel, but you don't know if it's going to be that big of a hit,
Yeah, so Michael, right now we've got to go to another break, so let's play a couple tracks from the bands we talked about.
Yeah.
Let's kick everything off right here with White Lion from Big Game. This is Dirty Woman. 99.1 CJM FM. There's Extreme right there from Porno Graffiti. That was Get the Funk Out. Before that, we had Skid Row with Forever from their 40 Seasons Best Of record. And kicking everything off was White Lion with Dirty Woman from their record Big Game. Tonight on the show, we've got Michael Wagener, the producer and engineer of those 3 bands you just heard. He has a very storied career in heavy metal and hard rock. He's worked with, obviously, the aforementioned Skid Row and all those bands, but he's also worked with Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, Alice Cooper, even Janet Jackson. So let's talk about one of the next records you did after Skid Row. You were tapped to mix Ozzy Osbourne's No More Tears. How did that come about? Well,
No More Tears had been produced and mixed 3 times at the time when I got a hold of it. And at that point, Sony came to me and played me the song No More Tears, and they go, "Can you do better in the mix with that?" I go, "Of course." So they let me do a test mix, They sent the test mix to Ozzy. Ozzy told me later that, man, I did not want to like your mix. I went into it with going, no, I don't want to like this, because they already spent so much money on this record and they had done it so many times that he was just tired of it. And so he goes, I listened on my $20,000 stereo in London, and it was, well, it didn't sound that much different. And then they flew me out to the office in New York, and they played it there, and I have to say it was very much better. So he had to admit that, the new mix sounded a lot better than what he heard before. So I got to redo the whole album. He called me he called me from Hawaii, and because he already had a vacation planned. So he called me from Hawaii, and I still have that recording somewhere on my answering machine. He goes, so I like a lot of bass on my records, a lot of bass, and do me a fucking good mix or I'll set you on fire. So originally I put that, set you on fire, like at the same spot where it says, hand in the bush, hand in the bush. So yeah, that was really good. And like I said, Ozzy is brilliant. He knows exactly what he wants. That TV show really doesn't portray him in the way he really is. But I guess it's a TV show, and they need some action going on there. But he's very, very smart. Knows exactly what he wants in the studio, and it's just fun to work with. I mean, there were days when he would just come in, tell a bunch of stories, and then would leave again, and that was it for the day. That was the end of the day, So, that was a lot of fun.
And then it says you also worked on Osmosis. On your record, it says you produced, mixed, and engineered that one, but in the booklet, there's like 10 different engineers and producers. And how involved were you with that record?
Right. It was like that when we had done No More Tears, and it was very, very successful. Then Sony came to me and go, okay, we want you to produce Osmosis. We didn't know the name at that time, but the next Ozzy record, and we want exactly the same record as No More Tears. Because that's how labels are. They have something successful, they have to repeat it at least 50 times. Yeah. So we started on that, and we did 7 songs. And with Zach playing guitar, Randy Castillo playing drums, and Mike Inez playing bass. And it was an amazing band. Amazing. And just so cool to work with. And then we're like into the 7 songs, and then we had we ran out of songs, so they had to take a break and write some more. So I mixed the songs, and then Sony came to me and go, well, now we want it to sound like Soundgarden. And I go, well, look, it's recorded a certain way. It's not really possible to make it sound like Soundgarden at this point in time. Yeah. And I already had mixed those 7 songs. So I remixed one of the songs, Perry Mason, a little bit smaller, a little bit drier, and, moved away from the No More Tears sound. And then after the break, Sony just called me because, look, we're going to get Michael Beinhorn to do the record again. And therefore it was like, I don't know how much more it took to finish it at that point, but there is actually on the actual Osmosis album, the only song that I produced on there that was left over is the song called Amy.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, that was only on the second release. And then on Ozzy's The Prince of Darkness, I think it's called, or his Best Of, he put my version of See You on the Other Side on there, and he said that this is how Osmosis should have sounded. He liked the original version better, and he says that actually right on the record, and that he was never happy with the way it actually turned out in the end.
Well, I gotta agree with that, because I thought that album had potential, but I wasn't happy with the mix at all. Yeah. So I'll have to agree with him on that one. But I haven't heard your mix. I didn't know you did that. I'll have to check that out.
Well, check out the See You on the Other Side, and just keep in mind that is unmastered, compared to the original See You on the Other Side that's on Osmosis, and then play them side by side, and then you'll hear the difference very clearly. I got 6 more mixes, that I did. But they've never seen the light of day.
And then after that, you did Warren's Dog Eat Dog, which I thought was a great record. Very, it was kind of their Slave to the Grind, in a sense.
Yeah.
What was it like working with those guys and sort of working on that record?
Lot of fun. I thought Jenny was a great singer. He was not maybe accepted that much, but I thought he was a great singer. The guys are great players, and just to destroy the rumor, they played every single note on that record by themselves. There was nobody else playing anything else on that record. Like, there's always that big rumor, did they play all the... Yes, they did. They played everything. And we recorded at Morris Sound in Florida.
Oh, cool.
In Tampa. And then we moved to Scream in Studio City to mix it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Jim, I've got great respect for as an engineer.
Oh, he's an amazing guy. He's an amazing guy. I mean, both of them, Jim and Tom, both great people. It was a wonderful experience, and the band had a lot of fun. To me, that's always one of the most important things, that the band has fun doing this. It's rock and roll. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And we did. And everybody delivered their parts like that. Actually, we did the drums in North Hollywood at Alpha Sound.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that. I don't know anything about it, but I've heard the name.
Yeah. We rehearsed around the corner. I forgot the rehearsal place, but and did the pre-production there. Then went to Alpha Sound, did the drums, and then went to Florida and did the rest of the record, and then mixed it again at Scream.
Whenabouts did you move to Nashville? That was in the 90s at some point, right?
That was September 1st, 1996.
Oh, okay.
2 years after that big earthquake in L.A., and in '95. I did a record here with Accept, the last record where Udo was the singer on the Accept album, Predator. And it was recorded here, and I fell in love with Nashville. I go, why am I in LA again? So, I fell in love with Nashville, and I fell in love with the whole atmosphere here with, it's Music City. Everybody knows about music. Everybody talks music, and it's just a great place to be if you're in music.
Oh, it's very cool. Because the nice thing is, too, I guess, that it's not, I mean, you think about the big music epicenters. I mean, Seattle might have been one, but you got LA, you've got New York, Detroit was once. And you just think, like, LA's got the movie industry and everything else, and then New York's got business and all that, and you just go, well, Nashville is just music, like you say.
Well, it's music, and their main income sources are music and hospitals and stuff like that, and, of course, a little bit of tourism. But it's just the feel here, In LA, I always experienced a competitive feel in terms of music. I don't know about New York, but as far as I see it from here, it's mostly urban and hip-hop and that kind of stuff going on there. But Nashville, and you would say it's country music mainly, which is true. It's mainly country music. That's what they make the money with here. I don't think that a Nashville-based label would sign a metal band or something like that. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of rock and metal being recorded here. There's a lot of people from it. Mark Slaughter, Tommy Kiefer, a bunch of people out of that scene live here. Mm-hmm. And there's a definite rock scene.
It's funny how a lot of sort of the 80s rock vibes seeped into country music as well.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
Do you get requests from country artists to work with them at all?
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, when I moved here, I was asked not to do country music. Because, Matt had just done Shania, and was super, super successful. So I'm not sure really what the reason was, but there was a hint that, please don't do country music. So, and I'm not doing it. It's not my world. I wouldn't know how. Well, I probably could do a country record, but there's so many people here in town that can do it much better than I can. Mm-hmm. And, my clientele is international. 90% of the people that I work with, the bands that I work with, are international. Finland, Austria, Australia, Canada.
Oh, wow.
I just did an album with Stryker.
Oh, yeah, great band.
Well,
Which one did you do with them?
that was the last one they did.
Oh, okay. I've got their first one. I've got to check out the second one now. I didn't know that.
I'm to the T.
Oh, okay. I don't even know if I've heard that one yet, but I've got to check that one out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Great record. And I've worked with a girl, Maria. Maria's from Calgary, and she is just freaking amazing. And you know, she has a hard time getting her foot in the door, but she is amazing. She writes amazing songs. She can sing, and I mean, when she sings, you sit there and you shiver. It's amazing. And you know, I wish that she could be more exposed and get out there and show our music to the world. You know, it's I did 2 albums with her, one full album and one EP, and both of them are just very much high on the top of my list of favorite albums.
Wow, that's okay. I got to check that out too. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's Marija. It's Marija.
Okay. Well, I'll see if I can track some of her stuff down and maybe we can play this.
The band was called Shadows Talk.
Oh, okay.
And her guitar player that's in Shadows Talk is also in Divinity.
I think I've heard of them. I think
Yeah.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
It's one of those super metal guitar acrobatic bands that are just over the top good, you know?
Now, when you lived in LA, did you ever own your own studio for mixing, or do you just go studio to mix as you're needed?
Yeah, for recording and mixing, at that time, there was still a budget. So you would just rent a studio that would fit that project. You know, with Skid Row, we went to Lake Geneva to Royal Recorders, which is no more. And we did I did a lot of work at Amigo Studios, the old Warner Brothers studio in LA, which is no more. And then Scream Studios, I did a lot of mixing and recording there. Extreme was done there. And that's no more. It's like, what happened? You know? So, yeah, we would hire studios. The only time I did anything, and over the years, I had acquired a lot of equipment, as you can tell.
just a bit.
Yeah. And I had like 9 flight cases full of gear that I would carry around with me to studios when I would do an album. And in the end, I just set all that up in my garage and did one record in that garage. That record actually never came out, but it was really good. A little bit left field for me, like almost urbanish kind of sounding, you know, a lot of loops and stuff like that. But unfortunately, he never got signed with that record. But that's the only time I had my own place in LA. But then when I moved to Nashville, I built a studio on Wolf Hoffman's farm. Wolf Hoffman, a guitar player from Accept, on his farm out about 20 miles out of Nashville, and in a 3-car garage. And we built it basically, except for the building, from the ground up. You know,
Wow.
we put walls in there. And then in mid-2000s, 2006, they moved back to Germany. And then there was a danger that I got kicked out of the studio, so I found this place and built the whole studio from the ground up, building and everything.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, Michael, right now we've got to go to another break. What do you say we play the mix that you did of Ozzy Osbourne's See You on the Other Side, and then we can also play a track from Maria.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's kick everything off right here from the Prince of Darkness box set. This is Michael Wagener's mix of See You on the Other Side. 99.1 CJAM FM out of Calgary right there. That was Maria and Shadows Talk is the name of the band, and Maria is spelled Marija, and that track right there called The Sickest Thing. Before that, we had Michael Wagener's original demo mix of See You on the Other Side, Ozzy Osbourne's classic track, before it was handed over to Michael Beinhorn, who mixed the version that is well known today. And tonight on the show, we've got Mr. Michael Wagener, the mixing engineer of both of those tracks. He's also mixed, among other things, Skid Row, Alice Cooper, Megadeth, Metallica's Master of Puppets, Accept, Dokken, and so many other bands. But Michael, we haven't really talked about you as an engineer and sort of your approach to recording and all that. Right now, what audio station are you running? Like, you running like a brand new Pro Tools system, or are you still working old school off like an analog SSL system or something like that?
No, I'm running Nuendo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Nuendo, Cubase, mostly Nuendo. In the old studio, Well, yeah, on the farm, I had DA88s, the digital machines, similar to ADATs. And then I went over to Euphonics R1, which is a very, very expensive digital recorder. And when that period was over, I went to Nuendo. I like Nuendo. It has a great interface. They haven't charged me a lot for updates over the years. Unlike Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Pro Tools is great. It's just, I think it's your personal preference.
Yeah.
And I like the Nuendo interface, and I like how it works and how easy it is. Sounding great. So that is my main DAW. At the old studio, I had a couple of those digital Sony consoles and ended up selling those in the end and got the SSL AWS 900. And I'm using that as the heart of the whole setup right now. So basically, I mix, the SSL can mix the faders of Nuendo.
Oh, okay.
It remote controls the faders of Nuendo. So I can mix with faders, but I can edit in Nuendo. So I got the best of both worlds. And the SSL is also has 24 analog channels. That's where I do my summing back through all the analog gear. I have been digital since 1981.
What?
Wait.
Digital since... I didn't know digital has been around that long. I thought it really only came into its own in the 90s.
No, that's digital in a computer. Before it was digital tape.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Okay.
Skid Row was recorded on digital tape. Warrant was recorded on digital tape. Everything, actually, even Master of Puppets was transferred to digital tape. So I've been digital since early on. First digital machine was... I can't get along with analog tape too much. It's a lot of people say, oh, the sound, blah, blah, blah. To me, it's not a neutral storage medium. It alters the sound in an uncontrollable way. And I don't like that too much. I still do something like it, but I do it with machinery that I have around here. In terms of hardware boxes, and of course all the recording goes through analog gear, a lot of analog compressors and equalizers and stuff like that. But it's just the actual tape that I'm not too crazy about. It's kind of weird because my assistant is she's working at a complete analog studio, and I think it's amazing that she goes through all this learning on analog and then comes here and helps me out with all the digital stuff.
I guess it's kind of like being a filmmaker and going back and working on film. It probably helps to give you a different perspective on that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I never really liked analog tape to begin with. I started with a mono machine way back then, and it was never, and especially when people go, oh, but for drums, I don't know. It rounds them off in a way that I don't like. So that might be my personal preference. I might get stoned for that. It's like analog tape, but it's just my personal preference. The thing is with digital is that you have to mess it up before it goes into the computer. It has to sound like you want it to sound before it goes into the computer. And that is sometimes very tricky, and it's not as forgiving as analog tape. That's maybe why people like it better. And sound wise, I think you would not be able to tell if it was recorded right in both cases. You wouldn't be able to tell if it was recorded analog or digital. I don't think that analog tape sounds good. To me, digital sounds better.
Yeah, I agree.
I've never, ever once have gotten a kick drum back from analog tape the way I put it on. Never. On digital tape, bam, it's right there, And I don't edit, even on digital, I don't do any drum aligning. I don't do any vocal tuning. The artist, the musician is performing the music. Music is performed by musicians, not by a typist.
Yeah.
So it's not that. It's just the actual storage medium.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a lot easier to work with, but it's just the storage medium. I don't want it to sound like analog. I don't like that sound.
Yeah, I take it then you're not a big fan of things like auto-tune and insanely compressed albums and all those sort of things that are in the industry now.
Yeah. Hate it. That's one reason I probably wouldn't do ever a country record, because but there it's already a must to autotune. That's their sound. So no, I don't absolutely do any of that. Well, if there's one snare hit that needs to be moved, so be it. But aligning a whole drum set through the whole song, no, absolutely not. If you can't play, this is not the place for you to be. This is the studio. And if you're not good, then you'll never make it out there. So why even record?
Yeah.
And if you can't sing, if you need autotune as a crutch through the whole song, well, if there's one line or one word and the line was performed really, really well, yeah, so be it. But not a whole song or a whole verse or anything. No. By no means. If you're like that type of band, then I'm absolutely not your guy.
I got to tell you, I couldn't agree more, though. And to me personally, that's the thing that really pisses me off about all the music coming out today. There's no heart in it. It's like a computer. It's just everything's dead perfect. There's no feel. There's no, it totally kills a lot of the performance and everything in music.
Yeah, and music is mistakes. That's what it lives from. And imagine where Elvis would be, or Joe Cocker with autotune. They wouldn't be existing, or flown in guitar parts in the second verse and flown in choruses. It's not music. It's not a performance. It's like some guy on a keyboard doing, a job. I don't know. It's not my world. Absolutely not.
Yeah, well, as I like to say, if you want perfection, study math. This is art,
Yeah, and what is perfection? Joe Cocker is perfect, He's so off-key, but it's perfect. Mm-hmm. Jim Morrison, the twice that he was on key in a whole song, it's perfect. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So about the compression thing, absolutely hate it. I will not do it. I've had bands sitting in my room up front going, and I played them Linkin Park, and I go, what do you think? You go, awesome, absolutely awesome. I go, see you later, have a nice life. I will not do it. It's not people that don't know how to do it right. They use compression, but because they have it in their system, they can put a compressor on each channel, and so they do it because they don't know where to put the microphone to begin with. To me, it's like, no, doesn't work for me. I'm sorry.
I've always wondered, how much influence did A&R people and label reps have over your mixes?
None.
Nothing. You wouldn't get label reps coming in or whatever and saying, I want you to tweak this or whatever. You sort of were your own master?
Yes, especially in the later years. There are some people that absolutely know what they're doing, like John Colodner and Jason Flom. Those people know what they're doing. Those people know what they're talking about. And those people would never say anything. They would never say anything. They would accept the art that came out of the studio. But in the later years, where the A&R guys were like 18, 19 years old and had done one record in their whole career, I never, and it's amazing. They tell you to change something. The next time you play them the exact same thing, and I ask, do you like it, the way we changed it? Oh, yeah, much better. So, rest my case.
Oh, that's hilarious. Did you find that in like the 80s and 90s, bands and producers would go out and they would find sort of a room or a studio that fit them and their sound, and now it sort of seems like all you're doing is just, let's just record it, get it done, and then we'll make sort of what we've done and we'll fix it afterwards to make it sound how we want.
I agree. Absolute BS. Absolute BS. I mean, back then, you've actually found a room that fit that kind of music. You went and looked at a bunch of studios and tried them out and checked out the sound in the tracking room and to make sure it's all there, Mm-hmm. And back then, we didn't have the gazillions of mic pre's and external gear that you have now access to. It was a console, and that was it, and that's what you used. But the vibe was the most important thing. And now it's just like they're recording at opposite ends of the world. I mean, how can you swing together and vibe together if that's the situation? To me, it's like, I'd much rather have them here. And even though we might not keep the guitar track that we're playing when we do the drum track, but at least they are there. They're playing together. They're feeling together. They're vibing together. To me, that's very, very important. Mm-hmm. And the studio here is built less to like a technical situation, even though it's all there, but it's more like you're in your living room and you're here, you're having fun, and oh yeah, we're also recording a record.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it is, and that's how I see it should be.
Well, that's it. A record should always be fun. If it isn't, you're doing something wrong, you know?
Yeah, and you can hear that on an album. You can hear that. You can hear the tension on a Dokken record. You can hear the fun we had on a Skid Row album, you know? You can hear it. It's there. That feeling is there.
Yeah. Who are some producers that you hold in really high regard today, and who are some of sort of your favorite producers?
Mutt Lange at the very top, because I think he's a perfectionist, but I mean his success gives him, agrees with him. I've never met the guy. I would love to meet him and have a coffee with him at some point. But he's my favorite guy. Then Roy Thomas Baker.
Oh, yep.
I had the fortune to get to work with Roy on the second Dokken album, and he's just amazing. He is amazing. The guy is totally over the top, and that's what makes him amazing. He doesn't. There is no. We can't do that. Doesn't exist. And I've taken a lot of that from him, learned a lot of that from him. Go, yeah, everything is possible. You want to use a trash can as a snare drum? Sure. You want to record your drums in a massively big room? Sure. Let's do that. So Roy was very, very influential on me.
Given your storied career, what are a few bands that you would either like the chance to do a record with or do another record with? AC/DC?
Yeah, AC/DC, definitely. And I did one record with Steve Stevens and Michael Monroe, which was a little bit of an unfortunate combination. I would love to do another record with Steve Stevens. I love the guy. I love his playing. He's just amazing. And if I could get a chance to do a record with him, it would be wonderful. I always wanted to do a record with Judas Priest. Never got to do that. But, I mean, AC/DC is at the very, very... That's my favorite band of all time. Back in Black is my favorite album. And I'd love the opportunity to do something with them.
Well, that record, too, is so interesting just from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
Just in the way it's mixed and everything, because you've never had anything like it before or since. It's so unique in how they did that record. And
it's also, from a playing standpoint, there's so many hidden things in there that you don't hear, but you feel them. And that's, Mutt is the master of that. And I just absolutely love that record.
So getting back to some of the albums that you've worked on, I noticed most of the stuff you've done are studio records. If the live records that you've done, were you actually out there recording the bands and everything, or did they just send you the tapes afterwards?
Both. I was out there on tour with Ozzy when we did Live and Loud. I did a live recording for Steve Jones, and what else live records have I done? I can't remember.
There's Testament and Sebastian Bach and maybe a couple others.
Sebastian did his record in Japan, and I just mixed that. There was another 4 additional songs recorded. Those were studio songs. But Testament, that was they sent me the tapes.
Oh, I see.
The files or whatever.
Yeah, that was after you mixed Low, right?
Yeah. Low means lunch on Wagener.
Are you serious?
No, that was actually what Eric Peterson said when they asked him, so what does LOW stand for? It says lunch on Wagener. Yeah, Testament is an amazing band too. I love that band. They've just done a great record. I worked with them on 2 albums, and they were both just mixes, but we had a lot of fun doing that.
Like, to me, kind of the issue with your discography, I own most of the albums you've done in the 80s and 90s. I'm really sort of sporadic on the more recent stuff. What are some of your favorite records that you've worked on in about the last 10, 15 years?
Oh, boy. Well, then the Striker record is one of them. Then Lordi.
Oh, they must have been a blast in the studio.
Lordi's amazing. I love their music. You can remember every single chorus those guys play. Every single. They're amazing. I did 2 records with them. I did Babes for Breakfast. That was in 2010, and we just did To Beast or Not to Beast. I never can remember. And that record was done very, very, very different. Normally, Babies for Breakfast was he comes in, Mr. Lottie comes in and goes, I want to still hear the snare reverb after I take the CD out of the player. I want a total 80s record. And that's what we did. But this last record, there is not a stitch of reverb on those drums. It was all done with distortion. And we would like go and have 3 or 4 microphones on a tom and completely distort 2 of them, so that creates a long trail of distortion. So there is actually no reverb on it, on the drums, on the vocals and stuff, of course, but not on the drums. And it sounds bigger than life. Very, very interesting way of recording. We had like microphones in trash cans. and stuff like that. Great album. I really like that record.
I gotta check that out now and really listen for it. That's cool.
Yeah. Listen for those drums. I love it. I love that way of recording.
One of my favorite albums that you did in about the last 15 years or so was Hair the Dog's Rise. How'd you get involved with them, and what was that experience like working with those guys?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Those guys are just plain nuts, and and we had a great time recording that. That was still at the old studio. And Ryan, the singer, lives in town, and John, the guitar player, lived in town for a while. Great people, absolute great people. We had a great time recording that record, and that's another one where I thought, wow, this is going to be a great album, but maybe because of the kind of exposure they got or didn't get, it never made it that big, and I love that record. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do too. It was a very, very good album.
And then also King's X. I did the last 2 King's X. Well, I think by now they've done a live album or something like that. But I did Ogre Tones and 15 at the old studio. And that's, remember I said there's only 4 bands that played everything live during track.
Mm-hmm.
They are one of them.
Really? Well, Ty's a great guitar player, so that can definitely explain that.
Unbelievable. And you just go, could you play something like, and you mean like this? And it plays it right there. I mean, that was we were in the studio recording, and I said, hey, it would be great if we had another little bit more up-tempo song. And they go, well, switch on anything that can record 2 tracks, and then put the mics up. And we did, and we had a song within 20 minutes.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
That's crazy.
I mean, to me, that's jaw-dropping, Great people. Great musicians. I just did Jerry Gaskill's, he's doing a solo album, and we did the drums for that here at the new studio.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll have to keep my eyes out for that one. One of the things we haven't really touched upon is you've taught quite a few seminars. How'd you get started doing seminars and that kind of thing?
Well, in 2003, I woke up in the morning and I sit in bed and I go, why am I not passing on my knowledge? I've learned a lot over the last 30 years, and I should be passing that on. And what I started then is, in between productions, in between albums, I did what I call workshops. And the first one was in 2003, and it was a major success. And I have been doing them ever since. I'm doing workshop 28.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I do them always, but I've been doing them over the years. I also do something, it's called Ears for Hire. Like if you had a studio, I don't know if you do. If you're a musician, you probably do.
I've got a computer and a little 6-track, but that's about it.
Yeah. I would come to people's studios, and that's more a one-on-one situation where I then sit there and we record a song or mix a song on their equipment. And, it more normally starts with a rewiring their studio because, well, look, this is hooked up completely wrong, And I've done a lot of those as well, where all over Europe and Finland and California, I've done a bunch of those Ears for Hire workshops. I'm going to France in October, and we do one workshop in Paris and one workshop in Toulouse. And possibly before that, I do one in Germany. So that's 3 weeks of workshops. That's a very, very interesting thing to do. I absolutely love it. And then there's going to be another one in, I think, March in Slovenia.
Wow. You're very busy
so
doing that,
all over the place. But yeah, I do those here. The workshops here, they go for 7 days. We have a live band, and we're taking one song, and we're taking it from arranging from the demo stage through arranging, drum tracking, guitar tracking, bass tracking, everything in detail. How and where do I put which microphones on the guitar, on the snare, and so on, and then over to mixing and mastering.
Wow.
We go through the whole process in 7 days.
Have you spent any time with interns or taking on students while you work?
Yes, I do. But it's in a way that they're basically paying for the time. A lot of interns need credits for their school, and then they can come in for a month or two and then attend the full session. They do not have to clean the toilet or make coffee. They're in the session. They're hands-on. And I just had somebody from Germany that completed it, and he's like ecstatic about the time. That's something, it's like a 2-month workshop, where you here and on 2 or 3 different projects sometimes only on one if it takes 2 months to do it. But it's not a free service. It's basically a personal workshop.
So now that we've sort of spent so much time examining your past, what projects are you working on now, and what does the future hold for yourself and Double Trouble Productions?
Well, number one, there is those workshops coming up in October, and then I have 2 bands coming in. One is called Ascension. And
oh, cool.
you know them?
Prog metal band?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, great band.
Yeah, with, is it Caleb, the guitar player and singer?
I have to look at their names. I just know the music, but they're great band.
Great band. And they recorded already the drums, bass, and guitar on one guitar track on analog. And then they're coming here to finish the record and then mix it. And then there's another band called Every Mother's Nightmare. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. Oh, they've been around for like 20 years or
forever.
So. Yeah.
So, and they're going to come in August, and we do a whole full album with them. And then there's another band. Actually, a few more bands. Another band from New York is called Station, and very interesting band, totally 80s band, down to the spandex pants. and Station is coming in to do a full-length album. We did an EP, but they're coming in to do a full-length album. So they're going to be here probably towards the end of the year. Great band. If you get a chance, check them out. If you like this 80s kind of style.
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, harmonies and great singing, great performance, great guitar playing, which is not a given anymore nowadays. Yeah, they're coming in, and they're from New York. Then there is another band from Germany called Wolfbane, which I would almost call a little bit of a stoner rock kind of band. Female singer. Cool band. And they're coming in September 2014.
Oh, wow. So you're already looking way down the road.
Yeah, they're already booked for like 3 months. I'm going over there, and then they're coming over here to do the record, but we do pre-production over there. What else? Then we have, there's a band from Boston called Wolfbane. I mixed like 4 songs for them, and, we hit it off right away, so they want to come in and do a record. There's another band from California called Edge of Paradise.
I've heard of them, yeah. I don't know anything by them.
Girl singer, very, very high voice. And I've been working with them on the last 3 songs so far, and we're going to be doing more together. I have a band from Alabama. They're called Rearview Ghost, and they came as one band that played at a workshop. And we hit it off, and we've been doing another 5 songs together, and they will be coming back for the rest of the album as well. Then another band from Germany, Lion Twin. And actually the guitar player in Lion Twin was the second guitar player on Accept's Restless and Wild album.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
cool.
He never got mentioned much, but he was the guitar player on the second guitar player on that album. And we got together years and years later, almost 30 years later, and I mixed their last record, and they want to come in to do a whole album as well. So you can see it's pretty full already.
Yeah, that's unreal to have that much stuff lined up already. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's the summer in 2014 is still open, but other than that, in September I do the Wolf Spirit, and so 2014 is beginning to very much fill up.
Wow, you're going to be a really busy person.
Yeah.
Mike, right now we've got to wrap the show up. We've got just a few minutes left, so I want to thank you very much for taking the time out to do this show.
Sure.
As I'm sure you can guess, I've been a big fan of a lot of the productions you've been over the years, and it's great to finally get to talk to you. What do you say we go out with, since we mentioned it earlier, Hair of the Dog's Rise? Cool. Okay. So, yeah, thanks again, Michael. It's very much appreciated for you taking the time out to do this.
All right. Sounds good. Nice talking to you.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that was Michael Wagener right there, producer extraordinaire, and this is one of my favorite records he ever produced, released in 2000. This right here is Hair of the Dog from their album Rise, and this song is I Can't Fight You. Thanks again, Michael, and I will see you next week.